Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes. Really fortunate to be with you all today, and resolutions. I guess I'll just kick off by saying I think resolutions, I have to say I'm not a resolutions person. I set goals for the year, but what I try to set more is like a meditation for the year. But I think resolutions are powerful, and I guess I just want to kick off by saying that I think all of us just look at ourselves and think we could be doing better. And I think when we think that I could be doing better, it can either depress you or it can excite you, depending on what vision you have. I think when we look at ourselves and we think we have so much more creativity, we have so much more potential, we have so much more untapped abilities that we've been given, and how do we bring it out? And I think when we look at our lives and think that and make a plan, then it becomes really exciting, and I don't think it has to be depressing. So I think the first thing that the Bhagavad Gita teaches us, which many of you have heard me say, is that where we are doesn't determine who we are. And I think this is like something that we just need to instill in our consciousness, that at any point we can turn it around, we can move it forward, we can move towards our cherished aspirations. And I think I think that's why resolutions are a great thing, because they help us to start making that journey. So yeah, I just kick off by saying where you are doesn't determine who you are, but where you are is a starting point. And if we have a vision, an orientation, and the right association, then we can move forward. Yeah.
Beautiful. So you said that for some of us we can get excited about the prospect if we're thinking that, well, we could be better. And for some of us that can be something that can excite us, but for some of us it may make us feel a little negative. So if there's anyone here who's feeling a little bit negative, and if the idea of that we're not necessarily fulfilling our potential or living up to our potential, if that's making us feel a little bit down, what wisdom could you share to help us sort of shift that perspective and start looking at things more positively so that we can move into 2025 with a positive frame of mind?
I think the first thing is we should look back in our lives and we should see that we have changed things. Small things, we have evolved, we've transformed, and that shows that it's possible, and that it's achievable. And what we just have to do is we have to be wise, and we have to know, like, what has created change in me previously, what's worked, what elements have I introduced that have given me that strength and that capacity to really change something in my life, and how can I now recreate that in my present situation. So the first thing is, I would say, if you're feeling like I want to be better but I can't, I think just first thing is look back and see that you have been able to transform in the past. The second thing is, I would say, if you imagine a graph and down here is days, then what you'll find is that your graph of progression is like this. Basically, it's just ups and downs. But if you zoom out now, and that is years, if you stay steady, then what you'll see is the line is actually like that. And what happens is that we're just so fixated on how I'm doing day to day that we don't realize if we just stay in the game, then when you zoom out, you'll see that yes, it was full of ups and downs, but when you zoom out, you don't even see those ups and downs. You actually just see a progression.
Mm,
And so I think it's really important to realize that there are going to be days when you fall back down. There are going to be days when you fall short of the ideals. And it's just about picking yourself up again and just moving on with positivity. So um, yeah, that's just another thing I'd say on that, that if you think you can't change because you always go back to how you were, change is always like that. It's full of ups, but overall you're going up like that.
mm. It reminds me what you're saying. Sometimes I go to the Lake District, which is a beautiful part of England. I go there with my family, and we like to climb the hills and the mountains there. And whenever you need to get to the top of a hill, it's never just one straight stretch to the top. It's lots of ups and downs, but the
Yeah.
overall
Trajectory.
trajectory,
Yeah.
yeah, is that you're moving up the way. So it's seeing things possible. So, I mean, forgive me if I'm sort of repeating myself, but just to get that solid understanding. So if we do see those ups and downs, what are I guess from the perspective of what can you say about our spiritual practices that can help support our material goals? Because everyone here today is here because they have some interest in wisdom, in spiritual life, in the Bhagavad Gita, and thinking more deeply. So, what can you say about the correlation between our spiritual and our sort of deeper goals, and how
Yeah.
they affect our life goals and our worldly goals?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I guess this is the point that I really have some conviction on and wanted to share with everyone that I think when we're developing our bigger spiritual aspiration, when that is becoming more and more interesting to us, when it's becoming more and more fascinating, like this huge spiritual journey that I'm on and what I'm heading towards, then what I think happens is that becomes the empowering factor to all your resolutions and your goals and all your aspirations in this world. Because what happens is they all become more and more meaningful because now you've connected it to a much greater journey that you're on. So, like, say, for example, you could make a resolution that you mentioned that losing weight, for example.
Mm,
And that in and of itself, I don't think it doesn't carry enough um,
mm,
for people to kind of see that through. But when you're trying to lose weight to improve your health for a higher spiritual aspiration that you have, because it's going to help you to achieve this in your bigger spiritual journey, then I think when you connect your day-to-day goals and resolutions and aspirations to that bigger journey, I think they just carry so much more weight. They just carry so much more meaning. And that's why I think, Nietzsche, he said, if your why is deep enough, then you can face any how or what. And I
mm,
think our resolution are the hows and the whats, but the spiritual dimension is that our why becomes so much more deeper that the hows and the whats kind of become much easier.
mm. Wow, thank you. I'm just wondering that, that sometimes when we're looking at spiritual goals, like we're looking at things from the perspective of how, and we're looking at these deeper questions, why am I doing things? What is the reason for doing things? Sometimes it can seem a little abstract, especially in setting goals. So how can we establish, and not just how, but can you give some practical advice on the types of goals that we can set for ourselves that can be centered around spiritual goals, but in a very practical way that we can measure? Can you say something about that?
Yeah, I set a few types of goals. I set a learning goal. I set an experiencing goal. I set a kind of an internalizing goal,
Mhm.
and I set an aspirational goal. So I'll explain what I do. Like, so whenever I look at spiritual goals, the first thing is I set different types of goals. So the first type of goal I set in spiritual, so just to learn new things, just to learn. That could be a reading goal, or it could be a discussion goal, or learning from a person, just something which upgrades my understanding. I think what we try to do is we try to make goals which are of a very, like, just a uniform type of goal. But I think there are different types of goals. So the first thing is a learning goal.
Mhm.
Other types of goals I set in spiritual circles are experiencing goals. So what am I going to what new spiritual experiences am I going to expose myself to? What new kind of spiritual arenas or kind of endeavors do I want to try and make that will give me a kind of glimpse into another side of spirituality that I've not seen before? Um, so for example, like every year, I always choose places to go to which I have never gone to before. So for example, this year I'm going to Hong Kong, never been there before. And I find that that helps me to grow spiritually. Um, my learning goal for this year is I have two books that I want to read, and I have a skill that I want to learn. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but so I have a learning goal, I have an experiencing goal, and then what I do is I have a an internalizing goal. And what that is it's very much about an internal goal that nobody will see, but which very much underpins everything I do. So that could be, for example, like one year, my underlying goal or my internalizing goal was the inner child, and to
Mhm.
try to do everything I do, but in the mood of a child, like imbibing the mood of a child, the curiosity, the willingness to fail, the joy, and all of that kind of stuff. So that's like an internalizing goal. And
Mhm.
then I have an achieving goal that will be like a project or something I want to launch. So every year I always try to launch a new initiative or do a new project or try to make a bigger contribution in a certain way. And so I think like this, we can see that there are different types of spiritual goals that you can set. But those are the four broad categories: learning, experiencing, internalizing, and
Mhm.
achieving.
And I know that you've spoken in the past about things like, you obviously you write a lot because we have your books, but I know that you also have a practice of journaling. You have just a personal practice. And I'm just wondering how, because learning and experiencing, these are things which in some way we can sort of measure, like, okay, what books am I reading? How many pages have I read? How many books have I read? Where have I been? What have I experienced this year? But the more internal things, how do the things that we can measure, how do they sort of correlate with the things that maybe for some of us seem a little more abstract? So how can we get those deeper things through our practices? I hope that makes sense.
I think internalizing qualities have to be externalized.
Hmm.
So like say for example, if my internalizing goal this year is to do everything with humility, then I think I need to externalize that. So what I'll do is that if that's my goal for the year, what I'll do is I'll open my diary and I'll say, what are the like 10 behaviors that I can just implement in my life that will help me to imbibe humility? What I'll do is when I open my journal, if that's my goal to conduct myself with humility, um, when I write journal entries, I'll reflect in every situation. What could I have done to carry myself with that humble spirit? So I think internal goals have to be externalized,
Mhm.
and then they very much sit in your heart in a deeper way. So yeah, it's without tangible things, like we're not going to get very far. So what you can't measure, you can't succeed in. So to some extent, we have to be able to measure it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I had just to share an experience which I think matches with that. Yesterday, I was speaking with a couple of friends and we were reading a book together. And the book we were reading was really emphasizing the importance of attentiveness. That when we're performing any activity actually, but this particular book was looking at spiritual activities, and it was looking at mantra meditation and the different spiritual activities we do. And we were just discussing the importance of attentiveness. And when I woke up this morning, I had this in my mind that, well, I've probably not been as attentive as I should be. And this morning, I made a really special effort to be very attentive in my spiritual practices. And the energy, the resultant energy and enthusiasm that came from just really deeply focusing for 2 or 3 hours this morning carried me through the day, and I felt this very, very positive energy. So it seems that, we can sort of practically apply the wisdom in such a way that it then has a very deep internal effect.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. These very practical things. Like another simple thing, like this sounds so simple, but is like, have you written down your goals? Like actually written them down? Now they did like a study at Harvard University, and they found that, the 3% of people that actually wrote down their goals and wrote down the breakdown of how they're going to try and pursue them, just this is just in material terms. Those 3% of people ended up being wildly more successful than the other 97%. And it said that those 3%, their combined earnings were greater than the other 97% put together. Now, I'm not going to just give you all these statistics here and all these kind of things, but it's just a simple point that when we actually write something down and create an intention, and just create a seriousness around it. Like the greatest project in life is the project on ourself. Like we plan, we plot, we prepare for like everything external. But when it comes to our own development, what I'm doing to develop myself as a person, my mindset, my attitude, my character, we almost feel like that's the thing that's just going to happen automatically, and everything else there's a plan for. So I think it's just about getting excited, and there's actually nothing more exciting in life than the project on yourself. um
Mm.
I love this story of this, like this kind of naughty girl who was just really restless, so the teacher decided to like um kind of rip up a map of the world. And then she gave this map of the world, and she told the kid, like, okay, just put this map together just to keep the kid like engaged. And then the kid came back in like 5 minutes, like, boom, done. And the teacher was like, how did you do that so quick? And the girl said it was easy because on the other side of the paper there was a picture of a smiling girl. And when I put the picture of the smiling girl together, the whole world came together. I thought that was such a beautiful kind of way of looking at it, that the greatest project is you. Like the greatest contribution you can make to the world is your own
Mm.
consciousness, your own character, and your own compassionate heart.
Mm.
And I think if we just focus on that, everything else falls into place. So yeah, it's just so exciting to think, like, what really, sorry, I'm just going on and on here, but I'll just say one more thing and then I'll
Maharaj, go on and on and on. We're all here to hear you speak.
throw a
Please just
virtual
go on.
tomato at me or something. Um, what really excited me about the Bhagavad Gita, about the spiritual path, is that when I actually took it up, I actually saw myself changing. And I thought, like, wow, you can actually change. You can actually engineer your own character towards what you want to be. And and that to this day is what excites me about the Bhagavad Gita, is that it's just so transformational. And I think, yeah, anyway, so that's yeah.
No, it's please keep going. There's Billy is saying that they're writing it down right now. They're writing that they're so inspired by what you're saying that they've just got a pen and paper and they've just started writing down their goals
Yeah.
based on your guidance. So thank you. It reminds me
I
of
shared a
sorry.
video, Ramananda, at the beginning of the year, and maybe I could just reiterate that I was mentioning that before you look forward to 2025, just these four things. I'll just repeat it because I think it's useful, hopefully. The first thing is, before you look forward, look within. Like, I think we make so many goals in our life that don't really resonate with the deepest aspirations that we have. We're kind of making those resolutions because we think they're the right things to do, or because everyone else will applaud and appreciate and acknowledge them, or they're like, yeah, they're easy things to kind of just set my mind on. Um, but they're not really things which excite you. Like, your resolution has to excite you. Like, if losing weight doesn't excite you, like, and it may excite you for a higher purpose or whatever, but if it doesn't, then I think you need to go about doing that in a different way, to ask, like, let me get behind that. Why am I doing that? To do this. Why am I doing that? To do this. Okay, that's what excites me. Let's create a goal around that. So I think that's the first thing. Look within. What moves your heart? The second thing is, I say, look outside. Association. Like, association is everything. And my good friend Jay Shetty, he used to tell me, three people are important in your life. You need cheerleaders. I don't, not literally, but I'll explain in a minute. You need cheerleaders, you need challengers, and you need check-ins. And I thought this was great. Like, and luckily I was just doing this unconsciously. But if it's not there in your life, the first thing is you need just cheerleaders, just people who encourage you, like people who are positive, people who are just like give you good energy. Then you need challengers. You need people who are like, yeah, that's good, Ramananda, but are you really going to be able to do it? But why do you want to do that? You need people who can actually challenge your way of thinking. And then you need a check-in. You need someone who you just go to and say, like, I did it, or I didn't do it. And that accountability. So look within, look inside, look outside, make sure you have the right people around you. Look behind, like I was talking about. Look at what goals have worked in your life before and ask yourself, why did they work? Why did they not work? And let's just learn and create a better situation so that we can actually be have a better chance of success. And then look above. And we talked about
Mm,
that as well, like connect all of your goals to something higher, um,
mm,
a higher journey.
mm.
So yeah, I think when we do those four things, then we can look forward, and it's,
Nice. So let's look within, look outside, look behind, and look above. I've
yeah,
written it down. I've written it down. Now I'm writing them down. One of the things that occurred to me as you were speaking, because some of the goals that we may have may be sensible, sensible goals, like for example, we might want to shift the reason, the motivation for why we want to achieve those goals to help us achieve the goals, but still they may be sensible, attainable goals. Could you say something about how to gauge whether the goals that we set for ourselves are even realistic, attainable, and sensible goals? How do we how do we consider, well, who I am as a person? What am I personally capable of achieving? Should we have the view that, I can do anything, with the right type of mentality, I can do anything? Or should we have a sort of grounded sense that, well, to be honest, I probably couldn't be an astronaut, so let's just move that one aside for now. So could you say something about balancing, you know?
Ramananda, I'm gonna answer that by just getting to the root of something which I think I lacked in my life a lot. And thankfully I received, and I now keep a conscious effort to keep in my life. Some time ago on Instagram, I did a session on the 5 mistakes I felt like I made in my life, the 5 of 5,000. But the five, and one of the ones that I came up with was helpless means hopeless. And I was just talking about how in my life I never really had a coach for a long time. I never had a mentor. I never really had a guide. I never really had someone who knew me and who was pushing me and who was, um, to some extent, doing all of those things, cheerleading me, challenging me, and who I was checking in with. And if there's one resolution that I would say everyone should make, which will help every other resolution, is try to see if you can start cultivating a relationship with a coach figure in your life. And I think those relationships look different for different people. Um, but someone who is helping you navigate this world is like we all need that. And nowadays I have multiple coaches. Like recently, I felt like I'm getting lazy in my thinking. Like I just don't think anymore. I hope I do, but not as critically as I think I could. So I was like thinking about 2025, 2024. I was thinking, I need to start like be more, I need to expand my thinking capacity. Like I'm just getting like slow. And so what I did is I have a friend. He's a PhD. He's a professor, and he's a wonderful person. And I just said like, you got to be my academic coach now. Like, you got to set me readings, and so he started setting me readings, and every 4 months I write something, and then he kind of we discuss it, and just being around him makes me want to think more critically and just exercise that capacity. So I have someone who helps me, like I have a thinking coach, I have a creative coach. I have a person who I share all my ideas with, and who I discuss with, and who coaches me into greater creativity. I have a coach who I go to for my meditation, and who I spend time. They don't actually know they're my coach. This is another thing actually. I have all these coaches and they have no idea they're my coach, but I'm asking them questions and I'm learning from them because I know this person has a very deep connection in chanting, in meditation, and so I learn from them. So yeah, I think we just need more people in our life. It's coaches.
I think we've got about 227 people right now who are looking up to you for life
Um,
coaching, guidance, and inspiration.
No, sure, sure.
Uh,
No, well, whatever we can
Definitely
do to
one
help.
of
And I
them
think
one
we're
of
all
them right
helping
here.
each other. Yeah.
I don't want I've there's so many things that we could ask, but there's so many people here, and I think some of them also would like to ask some questions. It would be nice to give them the opportunity to do that. Mehul, do you have some questions flagged there to highlight?
Oh, so Thank you so much. Thank you, Keshav Swami. Thank you, Ramananda Prabhu. I think it might be nice if I can just I'll ask the people who've asked questions to share it with Maharaj. It would be really nice if you can share. So the first one, just on the coaches topic, if Deepa would like to unmute and ask her question. Deepa?
I think she's struggling to unmute.
Oh,
Deep.
Deepa, can you unmute and ask your question?
Just ask the question on Deepa's behalf. How do we go about finding such a coach type figure in our life?
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think Deepa, just go on the journey, just learn from people, ask people questions. Think about, who do you appreciate? What do you appreciate about them? I think, like any relationship, it's just, first we have to want to form that relationship. I think the second thing is just going out, meeting people, connecting. And then I think the third thing is just being someone's student for a while and just taking some feedback, put it into practice, see if it helps you, and then developing that relationship kind of organically. So yeah, just go out there and speak to people, learn from people. I think it's the most beautiful thing, just to learn from individuals, because everyone has something to give, Thank you.
The next person I have is Jaya. Jaya asked a question early on in the talk. If Jaya would like to unmute.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
My question was like, this year actually I started my year a bit differently. Likewise, what you were mentioning, I have also realized that having long-term resolution really didn't help for me. So I have started having kind of like really short-term goals, what I can do. I have taken a lot of like lessons from last year. What are the big things? What are the things that I really like? What things happen unexpectedly, but it was a really learning journey. And I'm hoping 2025 will be the same. However, I sometimes find myself struggle to stay consistent, and I find myself blaming my environment and my shifting priorities. So, so that's where my struggle is. Like, how can I maintain my focus? So I do know my main thing, what I want to be, but when it comes to like for the day-to-day things, I find myself struggle how to keep up at it.
Thank you so much, Jaya. Yeah, so you're saying, in a changing, volatile environment, things around you are constantly evolving, and how do you stay consistent in all of that, all
Yes.
of those changes? Yeah, thank you so much. The first thing I want to say, Jaya, is don't always see changing circumstances as a problem. Remember, divinity is on your side. And if you make sincere goals to try to improve yourself, then everything that's arranged by providence around you is actually supportive, even if sometimes it feels disruptive. And so I think the first thing is, I would say that we tend to have this kind of default mentality that change is bad, that when something transpires against how I planned it to happen, then it's bad. But sometimes those changing environments, those changing situations around us, what they're actually doing is they're supporting us in actually evolving towards what we're trying to become. They say a smooth sea never made a good sailor. And therefore, the first thing is, I would say, Jaya, don't see like the changes around you, the volatility of the world, the unexpected things that happen. Don't always see that as something negative, but say, okay, this has come. This has come by providence. This has happened. How can I utilize it? How can I utilize it for my advantage? You can't change the winds of life, but you can change the direction of your sails to take advantage of those winds to still navigate your boat. And I think this is a great art of life, to learn this fluidity, this flexibility. You see, when you're physically fit, one of the signs of physical fitness is that you're flexible. I'm not flexible. But the sign of someone who's physically fit is that their body is flexible. Did you know the sign of somebody who's mentally fit is that they're flexible? They're able to adapt to changing environments. Because you know what, Jaya? The world is always changing, and it's going to continue changing, and it will never remain consistent. And therefore, if we try to build consistency on external stability, we'll always be defeated. But when we develop consistency by utilizing external situations to our advantage, then we learn the art of flexibility and fluidity. And so there's so much more to say on what you've mentioned about consistency. But right now, I'm just picking up on this one point, because life is so volatile and changing. Don't let that defeat you. Know that whatever changing situation is coming, there's a way to utilize it. You know, there's this story of a donkey that kind of fell in a trap, and it fell in this kind of hole. And it was just thinking, I'm doomed, I'm just going to die here. And it was, and then to make matters worse, someone started like throwing dirt into the hole, and was thinking like, not only am I going to die here from starvation, I'm going to get buried alive. So the donkey was at like rock bottom, literally and mentally and emotionally as well. And then the donkey said to itself, hang on, maybe I can use this to my advantage. And what it did is, as the dirt came down, it shifted all the dirt to one side and then stood on that dirt. And when more dirt came, it shifted it to the other side and then it stood on that dirt. And from the worst situation, the donkey actually literally got out of the hole, got out of that predicament. Because it's just about changing perspectives. So I'm just picking up on that one point, Jaya. There's so many more things to say on consistency, but I just want to share that with you, because otherwise we self-defeat ourselves by saying like, well, everything's changing around me, therefore I can't stay consistent. But that's the art. That's the adventure.
Thank you, Maharaj. That's very fascinating as well. Just to get the note as well. And that donkey story, I know that one as well. So yeah, I will remember it again, actually.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jaya.
Thanks, Maharaj. Next person is Daphne Mata. If I could just ask everybody to please keep your questions as succinct and short as possible, so we can get as many in as possible. Daphne.
Hey, Daphne, nice to see you.
Hare Krishna. Hi. My question is, how do you set goals and detach from the outcome at the same time?
Amazing. Yeah. So how do you set goals and detach yourself from the outcome at the same time? You see, when you pursue a goal, there's an external success and there's an internal success. And what Krishna explains is that the external success you're not in control of. But the internal success, if you follow your aspiration with intention, with intensity, with effort, with endeavor, then in terms of internal success, you'll always be successful. And so there's a way in which you can follow your goal, focus on the process, don't obsess about the external success, and know for sure that if you focus on the process, the internal success is always there. Like, I give you an example. Say, for example, my goal is to get an A in all of my subjects at school. Now, I could be attached to the goal, the result of getting an A in every subject, but to some extent, that's not in my control. What is in my control is how many hours I'm going to study, how much intention and effort I'm going to put in, how much I'm going to utilize all the different things that are available to me to increase my knowledge. In other words, we need to start getting the list down of everything that is within our control, and we need to start focusing on that. Then what happens, Daphne, is once you've focused on that, you may end up getting A's or you may not. But regardless of that external success, the internal success of developing your character, developing your discipline, developing your overall mindset, all of that has been achieved, even if you don't get the external grades, because you focused on the process. So this is the great art of how to live in the world. Don't obsess about success. Focus on the process. If we change that, we'll always be successful, maybe not externally in everyone's eyes, but definitely internally in terms of our development. And in that way, you can never be unsuccessful. Therefore, in spirituality, failure is not possible. You can't actually fail. There's no way you can fail, because our measure of success or failure is not external. Our measure of success or failure is internal. And if you focus on the process, you have to be internally successful. There's no way you can't be.
Then there's always growth.
There's always growth. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the great question. Sangeeta, are you there to ask your question?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Well, thank you so much for sharing so many gems so far, and for us to implement. My question, I hope, will support others as well. How can we reflect on our mindset and internal dialogue to support our goals and overcome thought patterns that don't support our higher self?
Okay, thank you so much. So how do we focus on our inner dialogue, our thought patterns, our mindset, our narrative? Because sometimes that can be the worst enemy. They say it's you versus you. And it's sometimes our mind is just defeating us because of the negativity that's there. So how do we change those narratives that are there? Thank you so much. Yeah, well, Arjun asked exactly the same question to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And he says that, you know, the mind is restless, it's stubborn, it's often negative. And to control it, Krishna, it seems an impossible task. How do we rewire, remold the mind? And that's a whole discussion which is contained within the Bhagavad Gita. But basically, narratives, Krishna says, are changed through two primary techniques. And in Sanskrit, he says vairagya and abhyasa. You can think of, I'm going to define these terms more generally. You can think of vairagya as quietening the mind. And you can think of abhyasa as stimulating and re-educating and re-energizing the mind. So basically what we do in spiritual life is that some of our time is spent in quietening the mind. In other words, finding spaces in which we can just allow the mind to be away from the chaos of the world, allow the mind to just settle. Quietening the mind also means not always reacting to every thought that's there, but just watching your thoughts. Quietening the mind can also mean being in environments, for example, in very peaceful environments like nature, or utilizing the early morning. What happens is that when we utilize all these things to quieten the mind, then there's a certain stability that's created. And then what Krishna says, the next thing we have to do is stimulate the mind. This is abhyasa, this is practice. And what we do is we re-educate the mind and remold the mind with wisdom. We remold the mind with good company. We remold the mind by, setting intentions and being very progressive and very organized in our kind of the way we go about doing things. In other words, what we do is we start to kind of remold the way in which the mind is acting. And so, broadly speaking, by doing this, one can actually craft a beautiful mind. And then Krishna gives many, many other things around that which can support the kind of remolding of the mind. And obviously today we don't have time to go into all of the details of it. But Sangeeta, what I would say is two broad things you can take away is, first, find spaces where you can quieten your mind. And then find activities which help you to remold your mind and re-energize and re-educate your mind. These are kind of the two broad ways to change that kind of mental narrative. Hope that helps.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maharaj. How are you doing for time? Would you like to do one more, or is that it? I know we're coming
Yeah,
to.
I guess we can go for like another 5-10 minutes. I don't want to hold everyone too long, but maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then yeah.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Sahira Singh, would you like to unmute and ask Maharaj your question?
Hare Krishna. So this is very relevant to me right now. I just got my degree and I feel like 2025 is the year I'm going to start moving forward with that, maybe get a job.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So the question I have is, how do we forgive ourselves for past mistakes to move forward and to grow without baggage from our past that drags us down?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so we make mistakes or we go through things and we carry a lot with us. And it becomes quite heavy and we feel like it's holding us back. And how do we just kind of let go? So again, a lot can be said about this, but I'll just say one major thing that in my life I've found really helps me to move on from seeming regrets of the past. And what I've found is that when we learn something from a situation, I've found that when we take a learning away, we take an insight, we take a upgraded understanding of life, of reality, of ourselves, of people, of situations. When we feel like from a situation we have grown, then what I've found is that it helps me to leave that situation behind and move on with my life, because I feel like that happened for a reason. I received something from that. And now I'm in a situation where I'm more empowered to live a more meaningful life because I carry that learning with me. But what I've found is that in situations where we don't do that work to find why did I go through that? What was I meant to learn from that? What did I take away from that? How has that left me in a better situation to live a more meaningful life now? If we don't do that inner work, then we just look back and we think, oh my God, that was bad. That was, you know, and we just see it in a very negative way. And so, yeah, it's just learning. I think it is something that really helps me to move on in my life. And let go, you know. Like I was on a plane. We were kind of coming into Stockholm, so I was sitting next to. So anyway, when I got onto the plane, you know, there's always that moment where you're like, who am I going to sit next to? Anyway, so I sat down. There was no one sitting next to me, and then this lady came, and she just looked at me, and she said, there was no hello, no nothing. She just looked at me, and she was like, I've been watching your videos. Some of them are good, but I don't agree with everything you have to say. So that was it. That was like the opening line. And she said, I'm a lawyer. I said, you're a lawyer. It's your job to argue with people. Then we started laughing. Anyway, so then we started talking about stuff and whatnot, and we had a great conversation. The plane was coming down into Stockholm, and I told her, I'm just about to give a talk on the science of letting go. Do you have any wisdom for me on that topic? And this like strong lady, she was like really strong and assertive. So I said, do you have any wisdom on that topic? And she looks at me, and a teardrop fell from her eye. And she said, letting go, I'm still struggling with that, you know. And I said, why? And she said, you know, my husband, he passed away 10 years ago, and I felt like there was so much I wanted to say to him and express, and I didn't, and I can't let go of that. And then we had a discussion, and I was, you know, we were talking about how does she move on from that? And I was saying, you know, think about all the good times, think about what you did learn, and think about, you know, what you didn't express to him, and how you now have the opportunity to express that to all of the people around you, and just take that lesson, and that's how we move on. So that's what I would say, you know, if you learn from a situation, it becomes so much more easier to accept it. It happened for a reason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On that sweet note, Maharaj, I think we should call it a night, and that sweet note. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us, for being here and answering all the questions so sincerely, inspiring us and motivating us